Dune. This word flows and rolls on the tongue like sands washing over the rocky cliffs of Arrakis. Perhaps this is why some of the main characters of Frank Herbert's saga refuse to use any other name for this planet. Arrakis, or Dune, is not just a distant world illuminated by a merciless sun and 2 moons. On the one hand, it is the only place in Frank Herbert's universe where extraterrestrial life is believed to have taken root. For on Earth, from which all humans of the known universe originate, silicon-based life forms have never existed. On the other hand, the planet itself is a full-fledged member of the saga's central cast. Dune is not just the primary stage for the 2 original trilogies. It lives and changes over time, just like the people whose destinies are interwoven with its history for many thousands of years. Arrakis is sometimes harsh, sometimes gentle, and by the end of the Chronicles of Dune it perishes, just like many characters of the epic. And just as with human losses, a quiet sadness settles in the soul for the austere and ever-changing planet. If you enjoy the videos we create for you, you can become a sponsor of the YouTube channel or subscribe on Patreon. In return, you'll gain access to exclusive materials and will even be able to participate in the life of the channel. Your support helps us produce videos more frequently and make them more interesting. All links can be found in the description. Thank you for being with us. Who were the Muadru? The earliest historical mentions of Arrakis are connected with a mysterious group known as the Muadru. However, even accurate information about whether this was a sect, a nation, or something else entirely is impossible to find. Only scattered rune-like inscriptions on stones remain, unreadable to anyone. There are also historical documents containing philosophical writings attributed to the Muadru, but even the powerful mind of a Kwisatz Haderach level cogiter cannot uncover their true meaning. Part of the Muadru heritage passed to the Zen Sunni and Zen Shiites, who fled the conflict between the Titans and the League of Nobles to distant planets. Yet no living Muadru has been seen in the known universe since time immemorial. Legends claim that roughly 5,000 years before the founding of the Spacing Guild, Muadru wanderers somehow brought strange organisms, sand trout, to a remote Earth-like planet. Where they acquired them remains unknown. Whether by accident or intent, the arrival of the sand trout shaped the future of an entire world and countless human lives. For about 3,500 years, the sand trout worked tirelessly, transforming a green, water-rich planet into the harsh desert where gigantic sandworms, another stage of the sand trout life cycle, would reign. Meanwhile, the Muadru vanished into the darkness of time. Whether they died out or became early participants of the great scattering that awaited humanity thousands of years later, no one knows. In the 1500th years of the imperial calendar, only rune-covered stones and vague legends remained. Arrakis of the Old Empire. Arrakis, during the Old Empire, was a distant and extremely inhospitable world. Life here was hard and no valuable resources seemed to exist. At least, that is what people believed. Nevertheless, the centralization of power in the known universe required strict accounting of all territories, and so exploration expeditions were dispatched. This occurred around the 1450th year of the imperial calendar. Scientific teams arrived on the planet to assess its suitability for colonization, and here is what they found. The third planet of the Canopus system initially appeared suitable for life. Its atmosphere, consisting of roughly 74.5% nitrogen and 23% oxygen, allowed humans to breathe without special equipment. Yet, researchers found no vegetation capable of producing oxygen, nor any bodies of surface water. The planet had 2 moons, one shaped like a fist, and the other resembling a small rodent. Later, the second moon would be named Muad'Dib, after the kangaroo mouse that lived in the sands. The entire planetary surface was a vast expanse of dunes divided by mountain ranges. At the North Pole, surrounded by mountains, lay a huge tectonic plate. Because it was shielded by cliffs, sandworms could not reach this area. This determined the location of the future capital Arrakis. Here, the administration and spaceport were placed, although to speak of any true statehood on Arrakis at this stage was absurd. The planet offered far too few resources to the vast, wealthy empire. Beyond the shield wall stretched endless rolling dunes that gave Arrakis its alternative name. Sparse animal life inhabited caves and rocky outcrops, kangaroo, mice, bats, several species of predatory and scavenging birds, and poisonous insects. Plant life was equally scarce. Drought-resistant grasses and shrubs, some imported from Earth, managed to survive. The dominant life forms of Arrakis were silicon-based, extraterrestrial organisms, giant sandworms and their larval stage. The sand trout. It was the sand trout that encapsulated all surface water of the planet for use in their life cycle. After absorbing enough moisture, hundreds of thousands of sand trout fused into a worm, gradually consuming sand and producing more sand and oxygen. The creature grew to immense size. This desert monstrosity fiercely defended its territory from all other life, including other worms. At the end of its life cycle, a worm disintegrated into myriads of sand trout, beginning the cycle anew. A side effect of this process was the creation of the spice, or melange. Yet, in the 1400th year of the imperial calendar, when the imperial chemist Yanshufashkoko discovered the geriatric properties of spice, Emperor Shai-Hulud claimed the discovery for himself. Naturally, it was not publicized, and melange had little value at that time. The old empire possessed other means of extending human life. Despite its harshness, Arrakis slowly became inhabited by humans. The settlers were mostly Zen Sunni followers of the heretical doctrine of Buddhism, a peaceful, nearly pacifist people. Imperial scientists built special stations to study this strange world. They lived comfortably until the Titans' uprising shook the old empire. Fearing disruption of interstellar travel, the researchers sealed their posts and evacuated. But in their place came more Zen Sunni, fleeing the conflict between the Titans and the League of Nobles. A life of hardship on a brutal desert world seemed preferable to dying in battles for humanity's freedom. Thus, Arrakis joined the list of non-aligned planets. The discovery of a wary slaver. Such a state of affairs on Dune continued until the beginning of the Grand Butlerian Jihad, when people, outraged by the murder of an innocent infant, finally rose to fight the thinking machines. It cannot be said that the war was fought purely for idealistic reasons. On the planets of the League of Nobles, many enterprises gained enormous profit from military actions that bordered on hopeless. Some worlds of the League practiced slavery. The grueling labor of hundreds of thousands of slaves replaced the technologies connected with the use of computers. And where there is demand, a merchant will appear. Unscrupulous headhunters from the unaligned Tlilax set up a profitable trade in human beings. What does Arrakis have to do with this, you may ask? The secret is that slavers conducted their dirty business in unaligned worlds. They raided the defenseless settlements of the Zen Sunni and Zen Shiites, abducting all able-bodied inhabitants. These unfortunate people were then sold in the slave markets of Poritrin and other slaving worlds. In the worst cases, captives were shipped to Tlilax, where the merchandise was simply dismantled for organs to supply hospitals. During the war, the demand for transplant organs increased many-fold. One such dealer, Kynes, happened to arrive on Arrakis. Either the headhunter had grown tired of hunting, or he was simply very clever. He quickly discovered that he could not seize enough slaves on Dune to make his efforts worthwhile. The locals Zen Sunni hid, well taught by fear of the desert giants, and they were far from defenseless. So Kynes began searching for something he could bring to the worlds of the League that might at least cover the expenses of such a long journey. Chance brought him together with a local naib, Dharta, who not only treated him to spice, but showed Kynes its advantages over many stimulants known to the League. The slaver quickly realized that this product might strongly interest Aurelius Venport, a talented and entrepreneurial pharmacist from Rossack. And so it happened. Possessing remarkable business talent, Aurelius Venport quickly organized the distribution of spice across the planets of the League of Nobles. Tuk Kider and Aurelius Venport became partners in the Venki Corporation. The boy who might have become Kwisatz Haderach. While the League of Nobles fought Omnius in their holy jihad, life on harsh Arrakis followed its usual course. The greatest treasure here was water. Water, and water alone, determined the fate of the Zensunni settlements. A foster boy, falsely accused of stealing tribal water, was cast out into the desert by the Naib Dharta, who did not bother to determine guilt or innocence. The boy's name was Selim, and his future seemed bleak. Had the teenagers somehow managed to survive in the desert without food or water for several days, it would only have been because the terrible Shaitan simply failed to notice its prey. Yes, Shaitan, the desert demon, was how the inhabitants of Arrakis understood the sandworm. As a sacrifice to this insatiable monster, they expelled wrongdoers and inconvenient tribesmen into the sands. But neither the Naib nor his people accounted for the outcast's will to live. Selim not only survived the desert driven by desperation, he accidentally leaped onto the sandworm that came to devour him and discovered that one could ride these monsters. Driving his first mount to death, Selim believed he had been shown the righteous path. He decided that the way to survive had been granted to him by Budallah himself, who had sent Shai-Hulud, his servant, to the boy. Naturally, the fact that the exhausted worm died near an ancient imperial botanical station was interpreted by Selim as another sign. And no wonder, only this station allowed him to survive a terrifying Coriolis storm that could strip flesh from bone. Convinced of his chosenness, Selim settled at the ancient research outpost. There he found food, water, and shelter from the sandstorms. He consumed large amounts of melange and eventually experienced prophetic visions. He might well have become the first Kwisatz Haderach, had such a concept existed at that time. After spending several years in the sands, mastering the art of riding sandworms without killing them, Selim drowned his loneliness in spice dreams. By the time he gained followers, he had already developed his own interpretation of Zensunni teachings. Here, the sandworm Shai-Hulud was essentially the incarnation of Budallah, his messenger on the mortal plane. Melange visions revealed to Selim the destruction that spice trade with other worlds would bring, the devastation of Arrakis and the death of the sacred sandworms. Meanwhile, Naib Tharta was rapidly expanding spice harvesting and supplying it to Tuk Kider. The settlement grew wealthy, and the Naib managed to subjugate several more tribes. Selim, however, organized a band of worm riders and robbed harvesters at every opportunity, returning spice to the desert. That is, simply dumping it into the sands. This greatly troubled Venki, as Selim and his followers were damaging the business significantly. By this time, Norma Cenva had already invented the method of space-folding travel. Humanity's demand for melange increased dramatically. In the end, Selim, the worm tamer, was killed, taking with him his sworn enemy, Naib Dharta. Deep in the desert, a new Zensunni society emerged. Harsh warriors in still suits, armed with knives made from sandworm teeth. Both the weapons and the equipment were invented by Selim, who had spent many lonely years studying the databanks of scattered imperial scientific stations. Selim's place in the struggle for Shai-Hulud was taken by his friend Jafar, by Ishmael, a former Zensunni slave who had escaped from Poritrin, and by Selim's son, Elhim. These men formed a new society, the so-called Fremen. They even managed to split into two sects, with the more radical group led by Ishmael choosing to live in the utterly deadly Tanzaruft. Many thousands of years later, these people, once outcast bandits, would provide Paul Muad'Dib with an unstoppable army. The rise of the spice or how Norma Cenva elevated Arrakis. And yet, Dune would never have become the central protagonist of an epic cosmic saga if not for the invention of Norma Cenva. Born a dwarf to Aurelius Venport and the Rossack sorceress matriarch Zufa Cenva, Norma spent the first part of her life trying to change her mother's attitude toward her. Her father, who pitied his physically impaired daughter, was the first to notice her extraordinary scientific abilities. He helped Norma move to Poritrin to become the assistant of the famous scientist Theo Holtzman. Working under the arrogant, savant-hardened Norma, when she finally gained the opportunity, she immersed herself fully in her own research, based on Holtzman's early discoveries. The result was a true breakthrough. Her invention contributed to the defeat of the thinking machines no less than the heroic deeds of Xavier Harkonnen and Vorian Atreides. And what does Dune have to do with it again, you may ask? It's simple. Norma Cenva invented space folding, the method of instant travel to any point in the universe. However, even the prohibited computers of the League could not calculate the exit point from a fold. A talent for foresight was required. Even if the distance was short, the navigator had to look into the future. And this is where the spice of Arrakis re-enters the stage, granting foresight to those who consume it. After testing melange on herself, Norma Cenva became the first navigator of the guild. Life inside a spice gas tank stripped her and many others of their human form. But the essential point remained. Thanks to this unique substance, humanity gained an immense advantage. Well, humanity may be a strong word, but the value of Arrakis increased by several orders of magnitude. The new Corrino-Padishah Empire, founded by Phaikon Butler, had to devise a way to regulate the governance of Dune. To preserve peace within the new empire, the Landsraad and the Chome-like Khanict emerged around unique Arrakis, created to prevent wars over spice distribution. Repeated attempts were made to resettle sandworms on other worlds, yet even the most precise reproduction of environmental conditions failed. Transplanted worms always died, and all such projects ended in failure. The Kynes planetological plans. To study the sandworms, their connection to the environment, and the secret of their survival on Arrakis, the planetologist, Pardo Kynes, was sent to Dune by Emperor Shaddam IV. This man became so enamored with the planet's unique biocenosis and the strict order of the harsh local tribes that he gradually became a Fremen himself. He married a local woman, and his son, Liet, continued his father's work. Outwardly, it looked like standard service by an imperial planetologist, a man invested with a certain level of authority and influence. In truth, Pardo discovered that many thousands of years earlier, Dune had been a true paradise. Rivers once flowed into the sea, dense forests rustled in the wind, and as in any normal human world, rain periodically fell from the skies. By uncovering the secret of the sandworm life cycle, Pardo and Liet deduced a method for reverse terraforming the planet. Their tales of water falling from the heavens, of mighty rivers and lakes, ignited a new dream within Fremen society. Political terraforming. Arrakis under the rule of the Atreides emperors. Alongside the groundwork of the Missionaria Protectiva, these plans of the imperial planetologists gave Paul Atreides, hidden within the desert, the leverage needed to unite the tribes against their oppressors. The bold dreams of the Kynes father and son came true even earlier than they expected. The process of greening the world, secretly begun by the Fremen in remote desert regions, unfolded on a massive scale under Emperor Muad'Dib. The project was completed by Leto II. However, this was pure, ruthless politics of the Golden Path. To maintain absolute power over the known universe, the God Emperor needed to eliminate the dominance of the Spacing Guild. And that organization could be controlled only by drastically reducing spice production. For if the worms continued to create melange, reckless smugglers would always emerge, and no tyrant, however powerful, could control them. In the end, only a minuscule Sarir remained on Dune, serving as a sanctuary for the Worm Emperor himself. Yet, Leto II truly saw the future. His symbiosis with the Sand Shroud was not accidental. The creature granted him effective immortality, while he granted it the power of his mind and the ability to survive in any environment. The death of the God Emperor repopulated Arrakis with extraterrestrial silicon-based life, but this time each tiny sand shroud carried a fragment of Leto II's consciousness. Thus, humanity could not stray from the Golden Path. Over 1,500 years, the remains of the Great Worm transformed Dune back into Dune once more. And again, the giant Shai-Hulud ruled the Sea of Sand. The last years of Arrakis, or the true plan of Taraza. In this chapter, the prophecy of Selim the Worm Tamer is fulfilled. And, ironically, the destruction of the planet came from off-worlders, exactly as the ancestor of the Fremen had foreseen. The Bene Gesserit, who preferred true spice to the Tleilaxu substitute, competed for control over Dune with the local priesthood. True, Dune was now called Rakis, and its ancient capital was Kynes, not Arrakeen. It all seemed rooted once again in religious conflict. The priests worshipped Shai-Hulud, while the Bene Tleilax worshipped Leto II. Yet even the manufacturers of synthetic spice still preferred real spice. Everything might have spun endlessly in this cycle, had a girl named Shiana not appeared in a remote village, one who could command the worms. In their attempts to gain control over the priests and Shiana on one side, and to form a profitable alliance with the Bene Tleilax on the other, the Bene Gesserit sisters stumbled upon an unpleasant discovery. The God Emperor still controlled their lives. All sandworms and sand shroud carried fragments of his mind. Thus, humanity could not escape the tyrant's influence. According to the Reverend Mother Taraza, Leto II did not foresee the future. He created it and continued to influence it. This drove the head of the Bene Gesserit to a desperate act. Seeking to free the universe from the influence of the long-dead God Emperor, Reverend Mother Taraza arranged an attack on Rakis by the Honored Matres. These violent women had old grievances against both the Bene Tleilax and the Bene Gesserit, and they did not bother with half measures. They simply burned the entire planet, turning its surface into molten glass. This escapade cost Taraza her life. Her successor, Darby O'Drade, a direct descendant of the ancient Atreides, managed to save the last young worm. It was taken to Chapter House, the central world of the Bene Gesserit. By inducing an early life cycle shift in the young worm, the sisters released Sandshroud onto their green planet and began to wait patiently. Well, with this, the history of Arrakis has, perhaps, come to an end. Yes, on their chapter house, the skilled women of the Bene Gesserit order succeeded in recreating the sandworms. One day, their nearly paradisiacal world will fully transform into a desert hell, inhabited by the only extraterrestrials of the known universe, and every creature will carry within itself the spirit of the God Emperor Leto II, until once again, someone decides that the fate of the world is governed by Shai-Hulud. However, no matter how hard the sandworms try, the Gesserit chapter house will never become Dune, simply because its time has gone forever. And that is all for now. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon. You can also support our channel by subscribing on Patreon or becoming a YouTube sponsor. Thank you for watching, see you soon, goodbye.